You suck, and that's okay. Here's why. Oftentimes when we start things, we often feel that we need to be the very best or very good immediately. Now, this is natural because nobody wants to be that person that is terrible at the thing that everybody else is either decent, average, or the best at. Now, I used to hate, and I mean really hate, being bad at things. Like, I despised it, bro. I'm not gonna hold you. But that all changed when I really understood what sucking or like being terrible at something really means. Us being bad at something is closely associated with our self-esteem or just how we feel like we fit into society. Like, think about it. If you're bad at being social, then you can struggle to literally be charismatic and make friends or have good interactions with people on a day-to-day basis. If you're bad at a sport, you can be the reason why your team is not performing well in games, matches, tournaments. If you're bad at business, then you can be the sole reason why your business isn't flourishing, why you're not getting any revenue, or why there's no return on your investments. See, like, if you're bad at communication, that can probably inhibit your ability to grow within relationships. And I'm not just talking about like romantic relationships, I'm talking about platonic like friendships as well. Because a lot of times, if you think about it, if you can't communicate, then that stops you from being able to express yourself and express boundaries or things that you find are strengths within a relationship, and giving the other person the ability to feel that they can convey the same thing back to you. All in all, nobody likes to suck at things, and the reason for that being is because it negatively impacts our day-to-day lives. Now, those are all the bad things that come with sucking. No Diddy. I'm sorry, somebody had to say it. I was not about to get fried and clipped. Now, the good thing that comes from understanding that you're bad at something is the realization that you know you're bad at something. Something can be done about that. See, most people, including me, when you recognize you're bad at something, you like to focus on your strengths and hide your insecurities. And I mean, it's pretty logical if you think about it. Focus on what you're good at and ignore what you're not, right? Now, that mindset, even though logically it makes sense, I don't think it applies and helps you in your day-to-day experience. And honestly, I think it can be very detrimental to you. See, the way I look at it, to know your strength is a good thing, and to capitalize on them is even better. But the person that you are, this body that you take and walk around in day to day, it's like a video game character. Now, when it comes to stats, you got to think about it like this. When it comes to those 2 traits that you're really good at, that's going to help you a lot when it comes time to utilize those traits. But those 8 other times, you're going to struggle a lot because you're only strong in this area, and these areas are your complete weaknesses. And the thing that you do rather than strengthening them is you hide them and try to ignore them. Now, these weaknesses don't need to be figured out overnight. They don't need to be. But you should be setting small goals towards those weaknesses to make them stronger or a strength over a period of time. All right, for example, like for me, right? I have a weakness of working with teams. And even though I'm a very charismatic person, even though I'm a very sociable person, one of the biggest things I hate to do is work in a team. The reason for this is because I know that when I can rely on myself, things are gonna get done, and if they don't get done, I'm gonna verbally let myself have it. Now, with a team, you can't really do that. I don't really like relying on people, and when people do not deliver on their end, I want the ability to let them have it. Now, for that reason of not being able to, let somebody hear my mind, it's one of those things where you have to think about it as like, okay, that's a weakness. That's not a strength. That's not something that helps your character. For me, one of the biggest things I have to realize is I have to turn that into a strength. So how do I turn that into a strength? I had to realize there's a communication issue there. The problem is I don't know how to verbally communicate to others and give them feedback when they do not perform or are not performing the way they should in a group. For me, I could probably say the most harsh, disrespectful things to myself, and that's gonna kick me into a mode where I'm like, all right, let's get things done. But for other people, that doesn't work. People are not always gonna receive communication the right way. So for me, it's my job as a communicator or somebody who's trying to communicate to get better at conveying what I'm trying to say in a more acceptable way, where somebody can still get what I'm trying to say and listen to that feedback, but also do better on their part. Like, I had to sit and realize, how would I want somebody to communicate with me, and set goals from there. And from there, I started small goals on talking to people, making sure that they, 1, feel heard, and 2, understand what I'm saying and 3, not feel disrespected in the same process. So examples of small goals for different areas can be, let's say for charismatic, if you're trying to be more of a charismatic person or a sociable person, one thing that you could do, or 2 things that you could do, is you could compliment somebody daily. One person, just one person, one compliment. It doesn't even have to be the most grand compliment. It doesn't have to start a conversation after that. All it could be is just a compliment until you feel like you could spark a conversation from there. Second goal could be like when you're comfortable with giving out compliments, you can then try to start a conversation with somebody. And it does not have to be a long conversation. It could be a small talk conversation where you say this, they say that, you say this, bye. Now you can keep having those conversations until you feel like, okay, let's try to have this conversation go as long as possible before I'm like, okay, I need to go. So when it comes to sports or being an athlete, think about the areas that you are not good at. The thing that you hate to do the most, that you're like, everybody else can do this much better than me, but I can't do this because I'm not there yet. Either you do that, or you can ask a coach or somebody who is with you, like a friend that's actually doing the things with you, and say, what is it that you feel like I could be doing better at? And then put in the extra practice, put in the extra hours until you find yourself gradually getting better at that. Everything can be progressive overload. You gotta think about it like that. That's what I mean by everything is scalable. You don't have to start at the very pinnacle of the goal or the destination you're trying to get to. If you're thinking like that, what's the point of the destination? Now, when it comes to something like communication, you have to think about how powerful that is. 80 to 90% of what we do as humans is spent communicating. I'm doing it right now. This is either verbal, nonverbal, written, or visual. A lot of the things that we do in our life is spent communicating. I think the percentage is 80 to 90% of our life is spent communicating. That is a lot of time. Now, when it comes to communication, the biggest thing I've come to understand is that you need to realize how to say what you want to say, when to say what you want to say, and even how to communicate that you don't feel like saying anything right now. Those are all forms of communication. And the biggest thing that I've learned is to not only communicate with people, but communicate with yourself. Ask yourself, how do I feel in this moment? What am I thinking right now? And sometimes you need to see your thoughts on paper. Like me, I'm very traditional and old-fashioned. Sometimes I need to see what I'm looking at so that way I can have a plan of attack. When something upsets you, communicate that. Don't whine about it, but communicate and convey that. When something excites you, communicate that. When something makes you feel nothing, communicate that. You have to understand that you are kind of like ChatGPT. The more that you give information, the more you're able to figure things out and learn and process. So treat yourself with grace and give yourself the time to figure yourself out, so that way when you express yourself or you're talking to other people, you can understand what it's like to communicate and figure somebody else out. It can be very demoralizing to set up these crazy, harsh deadlines on yourself and not achieve them in the allotted time that you gave yourself. It makes you not want to ever do it again, or feel terrible every time you set out a goal for yourself, and because you'll never have progress. Think about setting the goal of being a charismatic person and being mad that you're not somebody like Will Smith or Kevin Hart, or somebody you recognize as being the most charismatic person you know in your life. It can be hard to feel like you can ever become close to that if you set, I need to do that in 1 week, I need to do that overnight, and you don't do it. Because they didn't take one night to get to that point. They took days and days and days, and those days became weeks, and those weeks became months, and those months became years. Start with small goals. Build on them, improve on them, and analyze if there's gonna be room for improvement, or if there is room for improvement. And if you don't know where to start with your goals, bro, there's always Google. I'm telling you, Google has helped everybody. YouTube has helped everybody. You have the most powerful thing in front of you that you're watching this on. Ask it questions. There's people out there that have gone through the same things, the same experiences, and have answered those questions, whether it be YouTube form, written form, shit, even Reddit. Boy, Reddit got that shit, boy. Somebody had the same experience you did 7 years ago. I'm gonna end this video off with a quote from a philosopher called Confucius. Now, when I say the word man, I want you to think as human, like mankind, okay? A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor, shut your bitch ass up. A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Confucius. So I end off by saying, good luck, and I'm rooting for you.